All right, welcome everyone. So I know all of you. That's all good. I don't need to introduce myself. From last week, there was a request for reincarnation and leadership. And so hi to anyone who's coming on the cloud. So let's do both. So I'll tie them together. So let's start with the idea, reincarnation. Oh, anyway, who believes in reincarnation? Like really believes it's really true? Okay. Who thinks it's like 80%? You're kind of 80% there. Okay. Yeah. It's quite a difficult one. Reincarnation is one of those things where when you mention it, they think of, it's an Indian, or kind of, some people are even connected to Buddhism. Buddhism is about reincarnation, but they don't connect that, right? Buddhism talks about, taking birth, and the next Dalai Lama is the dog, becomes a dog first, and then becomes the Dalai Lama, or something like that, right? It's a young child, yeah. So, but actually, reincarnation is well talked about pre-enlightenment, pre-Renaissance. So in the West, we've been enculturated to think in a certain way. And but today, let's get into some like obvious things about reincarnation. First of all, reincarnation means to reflesh, reincarnate, incarnate. So scientifically, our cells are changing all the time. So your hair is all dead cells being pushed out the body. Your fingernails are dead cells. So you're refleshing all the time. So reincarnation, whether you think there's a soul or not, your body is changing. And the type and that body, we actually give different names and different things to show its development as it changes. So baby, boy, and then people often think that, well, this is me, isn't it? I was born, but this isn't the body we were born in, because it's all changed. So that body you have there is not the body that was in the womb. So between 5 and 7 years, scientists agree that the body changes and refleshes. Even your brain cells change. All your cells change every 5 to 7 years. From a science sort of level of science. So yeah, and often we think, well, this is me, but actually so much of you is made up of other living beings too. So you're never alone, actually. You have millions of bacteria in your gut, on every hair follicle. If you actually zoomed in, I had a video, I couldn't find it, where you zoom into the skin, and you'll find that every follicle of hair, there's a little family of bacteria or little insects that live in there, little beings. So your body's covered with beings moving around your skin. You don't see them, right? You ever think of it like that? Ooh, it's a bit spooky, hey? So when you're lying there at night, you're lying with millions of other living beings. It's a bit of a weird thought, eh? Right? But they're imperceptible to your perception, because you're only conscious of being you see. You're not conscious of being those other beings. You have a symbiotic relationship with most of those beings. And if you didn't have everything's into gut health these days, right? If you don't have the right gut health, then you get into serious health problems. So you actually have to keep putting more beings in and making sure they're not only the right one, you have to make sure they're the right beings as well. Right? So how does that feel? You're never lonely. You always got someone to talk to. Now they may not be able to talk back to you, right? But just try to see your body is changing all the time from babyhood. And the yoga texts explain this from Dahinos Vinyatade, hey, that from what the people are doing on the challenges, they're reading these preliminary verses, these texts that are the foundation to actually understanding true self-development. What is the self? And then how does the self develop? Right? So Krishna explains, as the soul passes from babyhood to boyhood, to youth, to old age, similarly, the soul passes to another body at death. So it's inevitable that you're going to change bodies. In fact, we're always changing bodies at every moment, but imperceptibly. Like last week, I said, can you feel your nails growing? So reincarnation is kind of happening, you know, whether you're a materialist or a spiritualist or anything in between, right? How does it feel? Because right now you're young, I'm a young woman, right? Look in the mirror, oh, I'm young.
Terrifying.
It's terrifying to be young.
No, it's terrifying to know that you're gonna get old.
Well,
But that's just me.
yeah, you think you're going to get old, your body gets old. You see, even the language is wrong. Your body is getting older, but you're still the same person. Okay, so, and then other people will say things like, well, who are you then? If you're not the body, then people will say this kind of thing, that, well, you're the sum total of all your memories, your experiences, right? You are, okay, if you're not just the body, right? Some people will go more on the mental platform. Well, okay, the body changes, it's kind of me, but really me, the real me, I am the sum total of all my experiences, right? Does that make sense? Oh, what's happened to the, who would agree, who thinks like that? That you are basically, when it says who are you, well, I'm Lara, and as you start speaking, it's all about your sum total of experiences and who you are and what shaped you, right? So that makes sense. Just got to get this screen working. Oh, there's a reason it's not working, because it's in the wrong hole. I've just got this little video.
You can try changing the source. The remote.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Oh, not very cool, is it?
Yeah, it's been started.
That's HDMI too. So it should be on if you do HDMI.
So this is my,
Yeah. So this hole is HDMI too.
this is HDMI, so I just have to choose the HDMI, but it's not
Yeah.
coming up here. Maybe do you need that? You can use the this thing. This might do it. Well, go on and get Windu actually.
Cool, okay.
Maybe so if we're the sum total of all our experiences, then I was going to show this video. It's a nice maybe we'll just have to show it from here. How can I do it? Usually it just goes.
Turn the lights down and look at the laptop again.
There's no sound, no real sound. Hang on a minute. Let's just. I usually just click on this. Oh, can you turn the phones off? Sorry. Why is this device not?
Oh, this is it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I need to do the volume now. So let's look at this little clip. This is a true documentary of a real person, but it was made into a documentary of someone who had what was called retrograde amnesia. Someone who was on a train in America and he just woke up and couldn't remember anything about who he was. It took about 1.5 years to establish who he was, who his family was, and stuff like that. So let's have a little look at this. This, in terms of, this will help us understand reincarnation a little bit more. See it okay?
They kept asking my name, and that's really the last thing that I wanted to be asked, because I didn't know.
He didn't have any kind of identification on him, nothing. So we thought that he got robbed. So they put him on the phone and he said, "Hello, I'm so scared, I'm scared, I'm scared." I said, "You don't know who you are, you don't know your name, no?"
Extreme forms of memory loss to which we would give the term retrograde amnesia. Those are the rarest of all kinds of amnesia.
How do you feel?
I don't remember anything past last Thursday.
A person has some of their memories, you know?
If you wipe that slate clean, how do you figure out what it is that's relevant for you?
The first month in New York was just totally crazy. You know, everything was totally new. When I went to the ocean for the first time, I died feeling I didn't know if I could swim.
They come in and be like, "I discovered the best band." And they'd be like, "Oh, what are they called?" He's like, "The Rolling Stones."
I would like to have been able to remember things as a child. I wish I could remember my mother.
I sort of didn't understand the new dog, which sort of erases the old dog for me. And it's very weird.
Who are we really? You know? Do you know?
Very good question. I mean, who are we? Do you know? See those scientists, they say this is one of the great mysteries of amnesia, which we call retrograde amnesia. And the person said, you are the sum total of your memories. Like they're saying it like they're authoritative. Well, if he's the sum total of all of his memories, then he says, then how do you figure out what's important to you and who you are? But if you are the sum total of all your memories and all the memories are gone, then there's no more you. Because you are the sum total of your experiences and memories, but he's still here, right? So it's just interesting. How is it? You see, from the mental side of things, is this person actually the body? No. Is he the mind? Because the mind is the memories and the thoughts and the movies all come in the mind, but that's all been erased, yet he still exists. He still has a sense of I and me and identity and who am I? He doesn't even know who he is. Who's my mum? I wish I could remember who my mum is, my origin. But is his mum his true origin? Biologically, yes. But what about actually in terms of self? What's the origin of the self? What's the origin of you? So this part of this, what we were talking about last week, is about in order to get a different experience of life and to upgrade your life, you have to let go of the current society's norms and values about what they've told you about who you are and what you are. We're undermining the very belief system and norms and values that society's been telling us because it doesn't make sense. But we don't often have time to reflect on these subject matters, and that's why we have these workshops. Come in, welcome. Hi. So here's a gentleman who we just recap for our friend here, who've just been showing how the topics reincarnation and leadership, how they're linked together. And often reincarnation is seen as kind of a beliefy Eastern thing. But actually we've seen it scientifically, whether you're a spiritualist, an agnostic, or an atheist, scientifically your body's changing every 5 to 7 years on a cellular level. You're refleshing, reincarnate. You're changing, but the body's changing. Right? And then we just saw this gentleman who had his whole mind erased. Didn't know who he was. He didn't even know if he liked chocolate, whether he could swim. The idea that I am the sum total of my mind, my subconscious mind, that was all erased. So it gets you thinking, well, who am I then? Right? So that's why we're going to have a look at some other clips now, because once we can kind of start bringing our intellect, not academic, but just our intelligence and our logic and reason. It is not beyond the scope of reason and high logic to understand that there's something about me that doesn't change, even though the body and mind are always changing. And mindfulness I was explaining today on a podcast that most people are engaging their body and senses and getting stressed and doing acute things on the weekends to squeeze some pleasure out of their bodies and minds. And when that gets exhausted and stressed, the mind gets stressed, they get anxious. So therefore they go into mindfulness, which is trying to get when the body's all stressed, they'll try to get fit and do yoga and things to get the body to become peaceful again. And now today, so people are so stressed in their minds with work and worry and insecurity and COVID and all these kinds of things, stresses the mind. Now we've got all this mindfulness to make the mind peaceful and relaxed. Right? So you've got this gross body and this mind, which is a mental body, and we're just mindfulness, the billion-dollar industry now is to try to get your mind to relax now. It used to be just all about the body, right? Now it's all about the mind. But the mind isn't the end of the story. What about you? Your body's stressed, so you have to do things to calm your body down and get your body fit and healthy and balanced. Now your mind's out of control. Now you're doing things to get your mind into control. But who's the controller? Who's the driver here? So, and also this person had their, did you find it interesting, that documentary? It's really, really fascinating. It's very old, but
Watch it on YouTube.
yeah, I'm sure you can get hold of it. I can send you them.
White name.
Yeah.
I'll go home and watch it.
So now we're going to get into just watch a few things on reincarnation. Then we're going to get into leadership, because this is really important. Because leadership is, it's how you act shapes your character, and your character shapes your destiny. So let's have a look at some really revealing. This is one. I'll do my favorite one first. This is you can read this documentary. There's Dr. Ian Stevenson set out to disprove reincarnation many decades back in the 60s, I think it was. And he has over 5,000 cases of children who can remember their past lives pretty much perfectly. And he took everyone and scientifically went and recorded and checked out the stories of these children, and they're all really documented. There's a few thousand that are just really amazing. And he actually became the biggest propounder of reincarnation. And he's passed away, and his students now continue his work. And here are a few cases. This isn't his case, but he took their stories. He went to the locations, checked out the locations, the sites, the parents and all that, and linked them back to the stories. And he tried to, properly, laboratory tried to recognize whether the stories were kind of true. So we see Dr. Ian Stevenson is now, his legacy moves on, although he went to disprove. So here's some incredible case. This Bolger case, James Bolger, he's incredible. He's well documented. Do you want to bring another chair in? Anna? That's okay, we've got another chair, we'll squeeze in. So this James Bolger is a book out. This is parents who didn't believe it, and you can hear from the child himself. If you follow this case study, it was followed, even picked up in Japan, and they flew the child over to where he died, and it's all filmed live, how he left where he went down, and the reaction from the child is pretty powerful. So here you have someone, again, in this lifetime, the yogis explain, Krishna explains that, you go from babyhood to youth to old age. You have these lives that you have. You had a life in the womb. You don't remember that, right? You had a life as a baby. You can't remember that. Maybe you can remember who can go back to 2-3 years old? It's a lifetime ago, right? There you were in your mother's arms every day being fed. You have no memory. See, forgetfulness isn't a strong argument for saying something didn't happen. Well, I don't remember my last life. Well, you don't remember being in the womb. Right? So then you become a boy or girl, and you play with your toys, and you think, oh, I am 7, I am 8, and then you go to teenage, and then you look down at these kids, and you think, oh, they're so pathetic because you're a teenager now, and then the adults are looking at you going, gosh, she's a bloody teenager. And then you're going to be a parent, you're going to look down and call they're a teenager. But which are you? Are you the teenager or the parent? You can't stay a teenager, you can't stay a parent. So which one are you? You were in both. You were the teenager, you were the parent. You thought you were the teenager, you thought you were the parent. You've been both. So which one are you? Don't overthink it. It's just so. Krishna explains there's a bewildering energy that doesn't allow you to see what's so in front of your eyes. It's so obvious, but you're not allowed to see. And there's a reason why we're not allowed to see. But we're again, let's look at James Baldwin. This is an amazing case.
There you go.
11-year-old James Leininger looks and acts like most boys his age, but beneath his playful spirit is a very deep soul.
I said, I'm really glad you're my son. I'm just really fun to have you as my son. And he says, well, he says, I know, that's why I picked you.
When we first met Bruce, Andrea, and James in 2005, his passion for World War II fighter planes was obvious.
I can make the Japanese easy as pie.
The fascination began when he was a toddler. James seemed intimately familiar with the aircrafts.
He started doing these little drawings of airplanes shooting at other airplanes that were being shot down. Bombing ships, you see men parachuting. There's another one where planes are dropping bombs. This is the carrier.
The violent drawings were followed by extreme night terrors.
He would just be crying. He'd say, airplane crash on fire, little man can't get out. He laid on his back and kicked up at the ceiling, and he goes, no, the little man's going like this. And he laid on his back and kicked his feet up. The little man's going, ooh, 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 can't get out. And I said, well, who's the little man, baby? And he goes, me. I thought Bruce and I were just gonna faint.
They questioned, what kind of plane?
Corsair.
Why did your airplane crash?
My plane was shot down.
Who shot your plane?
He looked at me like I was a village idiot. He said,
The Japanese.
where did he take off from the boat?
Do you remember the name of your boat? He said Natoma.
And his name?
He always said James, but his name is James.
Stunned by his son's words, Bruce tracked down veterans of the USS Natoma Bay.
I wanted to disprove it.
Columbus, Ohio native Leo Pyatt served on the ship.
He asked a few questions about, did I know some of the people? Oh, yeah, I remember those people. Yes, there was a Jim Houston, a rather large shell. He just hit him in the engine and it burst into flames and went down.
It was all real. James Houston, born and raised in the Midwest, was shot down over Chichijima, Japan.
He got very quiet.
The Leiningers were speechless again when James met Natoma Bay veterans and recognized them by name.
You're Bob Greenwald. I'm serious.
He never met Bob Grimm.
No, he never met him before.
They tracked down James Houston's sister, Ann.
And he goes, it's not Ann, it's Annie. She wasn't my oldest sister. I had an older sister than that. And I said, you did? Who was that? And he goes, Ruth. I mean, Ruth.
Annie is what they called me when I was little. Knowing my name and my sister's name, things that my brother did when he was a kid, it's too amazing to describe.
James recalled his favorite childhood possessions, and when we spoke to them via Skype, they shared one specific story involving James Houston's mother.
Annie had sent James the picture that her mother had painted of James Houston. And when James got it, he called Annie to thank her. And he said, where's the one Mom painted of you? And so she went and found it and sent a copy. And later on, she told us that no one in the world except her brother and sister knew that there was an identical picture of Annie when she was the same age.
Amazing stories like that caught the attention of Japanese filmmakers. Not long after our story aired, they flew James and his entire family to Chichijima, Japan, and the site of James Houston's plane crash.
Took a tour of the island, got up on a ridge overlooking the harbor. James said, this is where the planes flew in the day my plane was shot down.
Without any help, James knew exactly where the plane crashed. They held a memorial service and dropped flowers over the wreckage.
And James just got so emotional and just lost it. And it was just the most heart-wrenching thing.
But when it was over,
it was cathartic.
You know, it still gives me goosebumps to think that we actually got there and we were there and we were able to close the loop, especially for James, that it was something really important to him.
And when they returned, the death and destruction pictures were replaced with this.
There's dolphins and there's the Japanese ship has its flags flying.
At James's urging, they put all of this and many more incredible stories on paper and published this new book, Soul Survivor.
I hope that it helps people understand the meaning of how precious life is, how fast it can just blow away.
The Leiningers say they aren't promoting reincarnation. Before James, They didn't believe in it.
I really believe that there's a purpose to this story, and that the God that created us wants this story told.
And I also hope that it opens people's eyes up to reincarnation.
You do?
Yeah, I hope it opens people's eyes up to the fact that reincarnation can happen. It is a possibility. It's not a lie.
Suzanne Stratford, Fox 8 News.
Wow. What do you think? Guys making it up? Just going to dismiss. There's so many thousands of cases of children like that. Usually between the ages of 2 and 8, the memories fade later. Yeah, they get more engrossed into this life. And there's so many, you can look into Ian Stevenson's other ones. And there's another one I was going to show you. Want to see another one on England? There's a very famous one in England. And that's also pretty, this one here I was going to show because of time, but it's actually a young boy who was a black woman in his last life. And he was into all this music, and his mother couldn't understand. And it turns out he was, the woman had to jump out of a window. It was a burning building, and he was the woman. And they actually put the photos, and they did an experiment, just put all like 20, 30 photos of random faces, and just points out to this woman. Pretty incredible. So they tried to do it in a way that, you know, they didn't influence the child. But that's incredible. This one is an English, very famous one in England, and been very well documented.
Now, can the human personality survive death and be born again in another body? Not a prospect that all of us would relish, but surprising though it may seem, across the globe, those who believe in reincarnation probably outnumber those who don't. Reincarnation is one of the oldest beliefs, dating back to 1000 BC in India. When they're close to death, some people in Alaska believe so strongly that they even choose their next set of parents. The woman whose story we're about to tell believes reincarnation explains the dream she's had ever since she can remember. Jenny Cockell looks like any ordinary mother. Happily married with 2 children, she lives in the Northamptonshire town of Towcester. But Jenny has always believed that she is also the mother of another family.
For as long as I can remember, I've had dreams of being Mary in Ireland and dying when the children were still young, not grown, in the 1930s. Terrible dreams of being alone in a room in pain, not at home, and knowing that there's nothing I can do to ensure the safety of the children's futures. During waking hours, I remember happier memories from the life as Mary. I remembered the children at meal times.
But Jenny also sensed trouble in the family.
I didn't know quite why I should feel so uneasy and so concerned, what it was that I was really afraid of. Something I was shutting out.
Shut up,
The memories were a little bit like pieces of a jigsaw. Some parts were very clear, some parts were vague, and there was so many bits that seemed to be missing. It was difficult to try to get the whole picture.
As soon as she could pick up a pencil, Jenny began drawing maps of the village she saw in her mind, the main roads, the station, and her cottage. And when she got a school atlas, she could even locate where it was.
And after several attempts, just shutting my eyes and allowing myself to be drawn to a place that might feel familiar, I found that Malahide was named just north of Dublin.
For years, Jenny kept these strange visions of Ireland to herself, until at last she could hold back no longer. She had to find out if the memories meant anything. She began at her local bookshop, ordering a map of the Malahide area to confirm her childhood drawings. The maps matched. For Jenny, a first glimmer of proof.
Looks the same.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Now she did more and tried hypnosis to plumb her deeper memories.
And just drift away. Just drift off into deep, deep relaxation. 1, 2.
It sharpened up a great deal of the detail.
3.
There's
Think about memory.
one of the churches, I
4.
saw the outside fairly clearly enough to make a little drawing afterwards of it. And standing at the end of a jetty, wrapped in a dark shawl, it was dusk, and I remembered waiting for a boat, but I had no idea who was on the boat or why I was waiting for a boat.
You see where you are?
But were these real memories, or just an overactive imagination?
It gets difficult to believe that when you see the consistency of the facts and the findings of the memories between one session and the next. And Jenny's been through several sessions of this at different times, and each time she's been consistent in what she's been telling me. And I find that evidence that I can't ignore, I can't dismiss. It's worth investigating, and there is more to this than meets the eye.
It was enough for Jenny to invest in a trip to Malahide. This was the first time she'd been to Ireland, and yet she felt certain she'd been there before.
I didn't need a map, I knew my way around. I tried to find somebody who might remember the family, who might remember the children.
Back in England, Jenny received a letter from an old man in Malahide.
Relating to the mother who died in the 1930s, she was Mrs. Sutton. After her death, the children were sent to orphanages.
It was the breakthrough Jenny needed. She was able to get a copy of Mary Sutton's death certificate, and from an orphanage came the first names of her children. An appeal in an Irish newspaper then produced a telephone number for the oldest boy, Sonny.
Hello, my name is Jenny Cockell.
Sort of frightened me.
And I've been trying to...
In one way. Can I say to my wife, there's something weird here. So I don't know who this person is. How the hell did she come to know so much about the family? You said that she remembers about the jetting. Well, I explained to her that I used to have a little job as a caddy. And we used to row over to the island. And in the evening, we would always like again. And she greet me at the top of the steps. We used to have she used to cuddle me.
With Sonny's help, the picture is finally becoming clear. The pieces of the jigsaw were going in and making things a lot easier to understand. And most of all, he was able to explain to me what I had been afraid of.
My mother was a loving person. She loved her husband, she loved her family.
Can you just read it through there for me again?
But my father was the opposite. My mother was only there for the convenience. He was cruel to my mother. He was cruel to his children. He came home from work and he was drunk. That's their best around. And there's many, many times it kept between him and my mother. And the same with mother.
Mary Sutton died at the age of 32. The children were taken away, all except Sonny, who had to keep house for his father.
It was very painful because I lost my mother and I went down and I was going to lose my brothers and sisters. And when they were taken away, it was very, very hurtful, very painful.
I knew that I couldn't settle until the family were reunited. That part of me that was Mary needed to see the children happy.
One by one, Jenny tracked down not only Sonny, but all the surviving Sutton children. And a few weeks ago, at the home of youngest sister Betty, they were reunited, all together again for the first time in 61 years.
Hi, Christy. It is indeed. How are you? Great, and yourself?
Brothers Frank and Christy.
Don't cry.
Phyllis and Sonny. Unknown to Phyllis, she and Betty had lived within 15 minutes of each other for 40 years. And it's Phyllis who appears in the only photo of their mother, Mary. They're all about to meet the woman who believes she is Mary, back from the dead.
Hi, Jenny. How are you?
So Jenny Cockell has reunited a lost family. But are they convinced she's the reincarnation of their mother?
Priest only lives across from us, Father McCarthy. And I said, Father, can we see? I want the truth though, he said. Do you believe in reincarnation? He said, that is all I can answer, Chris, he said, is that your mother is calling from heaven. And this through you.
Jenny's dreams are mommy's thoughts. Basically, my opinion is that Mum wanted us all together again. And Jenny was the lucky one that she chose and put her soul into Jennifer. That's the way I look at it.
And to complete the reunion, a homecoming. Back to the remains of the humble cottage in Malahide that the family left after the death of their beloved mother.
She is back again. I believe that my mother is not passed on, she hasn't passed over, as we say. The wounds of the years of separation, the wounds of not knowing where my brothers and sisters were, those wounds Jenny is healed now. Because now I know where they are. I know the bloodline and well.
Jenny Cockell has just written a book about her experiences, Yesterday's Children, published next month.
Cool. An old one, but yeah, interesting. What do you think? Yeah, it's very odd, isn't it? But yet somehow kind of makes sense, doesn't it? So this is getting us thinking tonight about reincarnation. I'll show one quick one about
To some,
something else.
Genius is an arbitrary label. The strict definition is an outstanding artistic or intellectual ability. In short, extreme talent. 13-year-old Archiana Kromeric fits the bill perfectly, and she has a unique claim behind her gift.
The earliest memory I could recall is probably when I was around 4 years old. One day I started having these very amazing and mysterious visions. His voice was following me, guiding me through these galaxies. And I asked him, who are you? And I started calling him God.
Archiana is an art prodigy from Idaho who claims that God told her to paint. And for 9 years, she hasn't stopped.
I like to say me and God are both in control of everything. So he tells me an idea and I could just take that idea and make it better and polish it better and just put it into paints. So he's like my personal teacher, my tutor.
She was 4 years old when I knew there was something special about her because she was describing a lot of new things on spiritual matters, and also she started drawing exceptionally well.
Archiana developed an intense interest in sketching. By 5 years old, she was already drawing at a level way beyond her years.
Myself, I thought she was dreaming. I thought there was something made out of imagination. But when she started describing more and more, it became apparent that this was actually something that did happen.
By 8, Archiana was painting portraits on giant canvases.
It kind of took me aback because we never read the Bible or we didn't have any kind of spiritual connection.
With no artists in her family,
She was completely self-taught.
This is actually one of my absolutely favorite and most memorable paintings. This is called The Prince of Peace. I painted this when I was 8 years old with oils. Many artists all around the world, they always ask me, so how did you do this and how did you do that? And I was like, I don't know, I just did it.
So just for time, another thing where someone's born in a family and she's self-taught. She just picked up and started drawing at the age of 3.5, 4 years old, sketching for things that would take you years in a college to do. How do you explain those things? So this is really important. The yogis understand that we are on a journey. Now the journey is not just in this life. They explain that why did you get this particular body? Why did you get this? Why did you have a female body? It's all just random. So you see the antithesis to this is to say, well, everything's just random. It's just luck, right? Just by chance, just the chance interactions of chemicals, you get a particular type of body, a particular type of situation. Meaning, life has no meaning. It's just matter bumping around randomly. Of course, but we see so much order, so much continuity, so much order, and even on a cellular level, everything's going on like a machine churning out perfect bodies, machines. Yeah, as we were seeing at the beginning of the talk, that we first, in order to really grasp your incarnation, you have to understand how you realize how I'm different from the body and mind. There's something, I'm undergoing these changes in this life. Whether I believe it or not, you are undergoing bodily and mental changes. You're forced to change bodies. It's just a matter of time. You can't stay where you are right now. You can't stay a young woman. You have to move on. So similarly at death, why do we say when the body's finally finished that the driver, the person inside, is finished also? There's other things I can show on here, near-death experiences, people who've had operations and witnessed the whole operation from above, people who've had out-of-body experiences in accidents. And scientific research where they've taken people past the point of clinical death. So we all think, well, no, you're dead. Well, there's different understandings of when you would say someone's actually dead. Medically, they have there's a certain time frame once your brain waves and all the signals in the brain are dead. For 20 minutes, they'll consider you clinically dead. Whereas in Germany years ago, they've actually taken people past that 20 minutes and brought them back again, and they have experiences. So even the idea of clinical death doesn't mean people have actually died. How can they have experiences? So this is really key, because what is the whole purpose of it all? Why is it that James was born again in another body, given another chance to do what? What's the goal of it all? He couldn't bring anything from his previous life into this life, really. She carried some things over, some desires and some abilities. Right? Some connection to higher consciousness, some personality was obviously following her. Just like you get followed around in London in dark streets by people, or you get followed around by people who are guardians of you. This is similar in your journey in life. So how do we link that to leadership? Well, let's get into that. Go to the next slide here. So the question is, what is your destiny? Because you have a destiny, whether you believe in it or not. Your destiny in your last life, the decisions you made, set you up for this life. And it's described in the yoga text very precisely that what people think is a spiritual experience is not a spiritual experience. It's a subtle experience, a mental experience, because it's the mind that carries the living entity from one body to another. Just like in this life, the mind, what you focus on, how you cultivate that mind, that shapes your actions. Your actions become habits, and your habits shape your body, your character, right? So depending on your mentality, you will seek to try to enjoy this life in a certain way, and you will try to adapt it. So if you have a mentality to be big and strong, you'll end up down the gym, and that mentality will shape the body to be big and strong, right? If your mentality, your mind is one of just laziness, moroseness, just want to mong out, then you'll end up with a body according to those habits, right? So similarly, at the time of death, your mind is a template that shapes and lets nature know, oh, so in this life, you culminated this type of mentality. This is what you kind of want. Let's match that with a particular physical body so you can try to fulfill those desires. It's actually all lined up. It's all ordered, just like Amazon, eBay. You search around in your mind, I want something, and you look and you order it, and if you can pay for it, okay, you get a high quality. If you've got enough money, you get the quality version, or you get the cheap Chinese version, right? So in your last life, you had desires, you had things you wanted to pursue. So she had a longing in her previous life, that woman, to get her family back together. That desire carried in her subtle body into her next life. So she's like a living being, and who's carried with that same mind into this life, and those lingering desires have shaped and pursued her in this life. Generally, nature erases, but sometimes there's an overflow. If the desire is very, very strong, right? Trauma and things is often what they find in regression is carried over from previous life when it's been traumatic. Yeah. So this is how things are working out. Whether we believe in it or not, that's what's actually the workings of the universe. That's how things work. It's not random that you're sitting here with that particular body, with your particular karma. So karma means, again, coming to leadership, leads to a certain type of destiny. Karma means activity, work. How you work, how you interact, what you do, what you're doing right now moving forward is shaping your future, whether you believe in it or not. Even materially, we understand that, let's go forward and look at this amazing diagram. So in your life, if you think about who you listen to the most, what are you listening to most of the time? Who do you listen to? And why do you listen to those people and information? That input shapes how you think, right? You want to know where you're heading, all I have to do is go over the last 5 years and listen to all the music and things you watch, people you hang out with, and I can totally predict where you're going to end up, pretty much, unless you change that association and those habits. It's very predictable. See, we think we're very unique. Yeah, me, I'm so unique. We are a culmination of association. You are a walking condition. You have been heavily conditioned socially, mentally, psychologically, by your parents, by your experiences, your schooling, the knowledge you've acquired. You have, what's a stark example? It's without a doubt, all of you think in a Eurocentric way. You've been raised in a Eurocentric education system. You think like a Eurocentric person, most of you, depending on which country you've been in other countries, but even in India, the British got in there and changed the education system, right? Yeah. So you'll think like that. When I started studying as an anthropologist, non-European history, non-European thinking, I started realizing, wow, we just assume the way we think is the only way we think. When you go traveling and you travel and you meet new people, right? And the way they think is so different to you. It's like if you go to Brazil, my friend's been to Brazil, she came back, been there back and forth, and she tells me when I went to Brazil, she said I was never allowed to pay for anything, and I was welcomed into all their homes, right, as a family member. Like completely different here. If someone turned up and came down to you met them in the town and said, would you say come back and live with us? Would you do that? No, we're very like closed off, you know. Okay, you've been here a week, start paying some rent. You know, but she experienced the opposite. She was there for 11 months, never paid a penny. She was invited into their homes, totally taken care of. She kept trying to give money. No, we never take money from guests. You're as good as our own children. Different thinking, different culture, different conditioning. So how we think. So in order to wrap our mind, ourselves really, around the real journey in life, we've got to shift the way we think. So did you know your current situation and the results you have right now are the result of all your previous input and decisions? Where you're sitting right now, your thinking and all your actions got you there. All your decisions, no one else's. You are a culmination of your thoughts and decisions and thinking right now. So if you want a different outcome with your life, you need to change your input, and you have to have knowledge of how to make decisions that give a different result. So those who are familiar with the compound effect, right? People don't understand that every action you do, even if it's 10 minutes scrolling a day on Facebook, that compounds over time into a huge impact on you. Every small little thing. One example I always give is like when you're at school. Sometimes kids, they may have a nickname for you, a negative, right? But they do it every day, right? Oh, you're old piggy or fatty, right? But it's just one little comment, right? But over 5 years of school, what does that result in? Someone who leaves school with a very, very low self-esteem that impacts their ability to act in life in a positive way and have a self-image. But just saying, go up to someone, hey, fatty. You go home and say, well, I just called them fatty. But every day it compounds into a huge mountain, like interest, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128. So karma is like that too. Every action we do, everything we eat, every decision we make has either a negative or positive compounding effect. So you can turn it around. You can have compounding positive effects. I cut out dairy and wheat last year, and I stopped. I think it was last year. I've forgotten the time frame now. A year or year before, and I didn't notice any difference for about 3 months. Just like, no, just cut out dairy, just trying to stay away from it. And then I think it was like late January, February, I went to put on my trousers and they didn't fit. It was just all of a sudden. It was almost like all of a sudden I went on to put on these trousers, and there's these ones that don't fit. Should have a better one. Because I didn't see any results in the beginning. Similarly, your karma is like that. You don't see results for your negative things, what you eat, what you're doing, what you're involved with, negatively or positive. You don't see the results immediately. But then one day something really bad happens to you or something really good happens to you. Oh, what a surprise. No, it's not a surprise. You don't understand how the universe works. That compounding effect, that karmic reaction adds up over time. It's delivered, but not just in this life. So you carry this karma from lifetime to lifetime. The Buddhists explain this and the yogis. So this is how destiny works. We talked about input, right? Input affects your thoughts. So what you think about will affect what you talk about, and also what you talk to yourself, self-talk. Words become your actions, actions become your habit, and your habit becomes your character. And your character shapes your destiny, right? Meaning your next life. What's coming up for you in the future. So how does this link to leadership? A leader is someone who should understand how to act in such a way for their own benefit and future, and to help others make sure they have a good destiny. To understand that it's not just this one lifetime of, okay, one lifetime means now I can be irresponsible. Who cares? It doesn't matter anyway. You're going to die. It's all over. Big mistake. We are held accountable for everything. That's why we have a planet of irresponsibility right now, because people are thinking, what's it? You only live once, YOLO, right? That's an assumption. There are arguments they can put forward, but they're just as strong as the argument that it's false. I would say they have very weak arguments to suggest that there's only one life. There's so much evidence and logic and reason to understand this. If I change bodies in this lifetime, and I've experienced changing many lifetimes in this life, why do I say no more me when the body's finished? It doesn't make sense when I'm alive. Why does it make sense when the body's ultimately finished? I'll give you an example. I used to have a 1991 Toyota Corolla, really old. It's my first car. I was 38. Never liked cars, but then I got married. I had a scooter and a bike, and so I had to get a car. So someone handed me the car. A guest from here said, "Oh, some people are going off. Some English people going back to England, and they're going to sign their car over. The first one who gets to the airport can have it." So I just drove over there and at the airport, and they signed the car over. So this car's an old one, and we were just driving it around, and then I pulled into the, and after some years, it ran for years and years and years. And then one day, pull it in, say one day, this didn't happen, but hypothetically, I pull it into the garage and the engine just blew up. Just gone. You know, clearly not financially viable, or even worth trying to fix the car. So what's the first thing I do once me and my wife decide, while we're sitting there, to say I'm in the car, just say I'm in the car for now, just on my own. The car representing the body. I'm in the car blows up. What was the first thing I do when I've made the decision that the car's finished and I don't, it's not gonna, no point fixing it, what do I do? Yeah, but the first immediate action, I'm sitting in the car. Get out of the car. But the problem is, there's a problem with that. That is the first thing I need to do, is get out of the car. Right? But if I get out of the car, I disappear then. Tricky. If I get out of the car, I disappear, right? Right? No, just got to say yes because I'm saying right. No, of course, if I get out of the car, I'm still there. It's just the car's finished. I've got to get out of the car. And what do I need to do, especially with Auckland transport being so bad? I need another car. So I've got to look in my pocket and figure out, what did I have left over after that journey in that car? Do I have any money? Because according to that will depend on what car I can get, right? And my license, and whether I've got any points on my license. So similarly, when the body dies, why do you say no more you? It's the same logic. Just because the car's finished doesn't mean the driver's finished. Just because the body finishes, why do you say no more driver? Well, you can't see. Okay. But these people we've just been seeing see things from when they had their previous vehicles. People have experiences of leaving the car and sometimes going back in the car.